I really need to step up my duck game.
I think this being the year of the green heron.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 13 of the Feathery Treasury show. My name is Aaron, and as always, I'm co-hosted by Alex. How's it going today, Alex?
It's good, thanks. I was going to say that it's getting wintry, but we had a pretty nice day today.
Yeah, it was a couple days ago, first snowstorm of the year, and it's already gone. It's already melted.
Fingers crossed we last a little longer.
Yeah. So, usually we start off by summarizing our walk that we did, which we'll get to. But first, we're going to do a little shout out to the fans out there. Two in particular. We met a couple of our fans, Steve and Rhonda, a couple weeks back. Back in mid-September, we attended our friend's wedding, and they're the parents of the bride. And Rhonda made a point to come talk to us and tell us how much she likes the show.
We were the real celebrities of this wedding.
Yeah. So just want to say thanks for the kind words. This is why we do it, for the fans.
Mm-hmm.
It's always nice to see the fans. It's always nice to see.
Yeah. Everywhere on the street, there's always a fan.
Yeah, and as a nice little bonus for you guys, we have a little bird sighting to report from the wedding. How do you want to let them know what it was?
It was a big pigeon.
Yeah?
Big pigeon.
Big pigeon flew up past the window right behind the ceremony as it was happening.
During the vows. It was distracting.
It took everything we had not to whip out our phones and record the sighting right then and there, but we were civil.
We waited.
We're good people, we do our best. Yeah. So let's summarize our walk we just went on. It was a
nice walk in terms of the weather, and the ground was dry and very nice fall time.
Good autumn walk. Not the best bird walk we've ever had. We saw one great blue heron flew past. A couple red-bellied woodpeckers. Those are always fun, Pileated flew right overhead. I like seeing those. They're a lot bigger than you think they're going to be.
It all happened at the end. We did,
that's true. Yeah,
1.5 miles, and it was probably the last quarter mile that
sure.
We stopped for a moment and saw some things.
A couple blue jays. We didn't even see the blue jays. We just heard them. Yeah. Heard a black-capped chickadee. Probably heard more than one, but it sounded like just one.
Same with the robin.
Yeah, one robin. A couple dark-eyed juncos in the underbrush, and then 3 eastern bluebirds. Those were the ones that got closest to us. They're pretty. And then no complaints there.
And then the song sparrow.
Oh yeah, that's right. Then there was a song sparrow. We stood there for a good 10 minutes looking at this thing, and I don't know. It just didn't strike me as song sparrow.
It was quiet.
It seemed to have a little yellowish in front of its eyes. So we got all excited. I took a bunch of pictures, and we're thinking, I think this might be a Savannah sparrow.
Lifer for both of us.
It'd be a lifer for both of us.
They're being seen in the cities.
Hyped up.
This today they're being seen in the cities, so they are here.
So we got back to my place. I'm looking through the pictures, and I'm posting it to message boards and stuff, being like, well, what do you guys think? And they're just like, yeah, it's a song sparrow. So, oh, shoot. All right. So
much for that.
No lifer for the walk. So that we were riding high there for a good half hour about our walk, and then kind of plummeted.
Yeah, it would have been the tail is the big giveaway with the song and the.
What was it? The Savannah has a shorter tail than the song, and I got some good pictures where you can see the whole body and tail, and it's a decently long tail. So. Yep. Never mind on that, but it was still nice to get out, do a little walk. The park was busy, but there were still some birds. So we've not recorded since May or April, was it?
Yeah, after the big spring migration push.
Yeah, so we got a lot and also a little to catch up on. I was pretty bad about carving out time this summer to go birding. Didn't do a whole lot. So it was kind of just a couple sporadic sightings that are worth reporting on. All summer long, just hanging out in the backyard, I kept hearing these birds kind of way up in the sky, and I couldn't figure out what they were. It was just faint enough that Merlin was having trouble picking them up. And then finally one came down close enough, and it was a chimney swift, which I know are around. I'm sure I've seen them before, but I never actually recorded them. So yeah, I got good looks at them. Brought my camera out a couple of the evenings, got some decent pictures of them.
They're like cigar shaped.
Yeah, so basically cigars with wings. But yeah, pretty cool birds. They were out just about all summer long. I think the last time I saw them was maybe September. But yeah, that was a nice little treat. And then So that was my only lifer during the summer. And then, but the only other notable thing was a new one for the year, which was a great crested flycatcher. And I was just in my backyard one day, saw him for 5 minutes, and then he was gone.
They're interesting looking.
Yeah.
The crest, I can see why the crest is what is drawn in the name.
Right. I went out there and I heard something calling up on the power line, looked up, and oh, you're different. So it wasn't seeking him or anything. It was just a nice check him off the list for the year. But late September, then we actually made the time to do a birding trip together. We drove down a couple hour and a half or so.
Yeah, it was a long drive.
Yeah, it was almost to the Iowa border, so it's still in Minnesota. We checked out Meyer Big Island State Park, which we had some high hopes going into this about what there was some warbler sightings.
Yeah.
So we thought, oh, cool, okay. So almost about fall time for migration. Maybe we'll see some good warblers. We got down there, and the walk starts off just kind of out in the open, and it was just hot.
It was 10 o'clock, and we were burning up, and we brought water, and we bug spray. Like, we were prepared, which I'm rarely prepared. We were prepared, and it didn't seem enough.
For about like the first half hour or so, there was nothing. We were just walking through the heat, just seeing no birds at all, and oh boy, this is going to be a long day.
And we have high expectations too, because early in the year we did birding trips where we drove for like 40 minutes so, and we did Lake Elmo, which was great, and William O'Brien, which was great. So there was a high bar to aim for here.
Yeah, and as we were walking, we were just talking about, I was saying I hadn't seen pelicans yet this year, and the last time I was down in Iowa, I saw some migrating, so maybe it'd be cool to see them. And then like 10 minutes later, we looked up, and there's this giant flock of pelicans going past us.
It was funny seeing them because if you looked at the wrong second, the way their bodies turned,
the angle.
The sun you were blind to them, and then suddenly they were there.
Yeah, and then they would because they kind of did it. They fly kind of like a circular pattern, but they slowly make their way while doing that. So all of a sudden they would all turn, and it's like, oh geez, there's a bunch of big birds right there. So we saw quite 4 or 5 different flocks throughout the day.
It must be a couple of, maybe 100 or so at least.
So
total.
We got kind of tired of them towards the end.
Yeah.
But that was new for the year, so it was. I think I've seen them every year I've been up here in Minnesota, so it was nice to check them off and not miss a year. So yeah, we saw those. That was the first good glimpse of something.
Yeah.
And then
there was some goldfinches that kept throwing up because I have not seen a goldfinch in their like fall plumage. So it was like, that's bobbing like a goldfinch, but it's brown. It must be something new. And it was only after I realized.
Well, and then we kept seeing these birds way high up too.
Yeah.
And we thought, oh, those are they look kind of big. They're kind of different. And then I got some pictures and looked later, and it was just some tree sparrows. I don't know if it was so bright out that it was messing with our perspective, but they weren't as big as they looked, and I don't know.
We had a lot of dragonfly issues because you'd see a bug, and he's like, is that a bird far away or is it a bug close? And it was always a bug close.
It was almost too bright, which, the sun's nice to see the birds in, but it was obnoxious.
How dare it?
Yeah, and so the only other really noteworthy things we saw were a single red-eyed vireo, which was my first of the year, but I think you saw some in the spring.
Yeah, I had some vireo success earlier.
Yeah, and then we saw a couple sedge wrens, which those were nice. Which those were not new because we saw those. What was that?
It was the single one.
We saw one. Yeah, we saw one back in the spring, but it was nice to see them again. We only saw a couple glimpses of them, but they were being really vocal, so there was no ignoring what
it got us quite excited for what we were heading into, and then nothing happened.
Yeah, and so right when we saw them, it was kind of the end of the grassy area and then into the woods, and we're like, all right, it's hot out. All the birds are going to be in the woods in the shade. So go in there and not much
Nary
at all.
A peep.
Yeah, nothing. So that was kind of a bummer trip.
I think if you lived in the area and can get there in the morning, it's good, but we're quite blessed in this area to have other places closer.
Yeah, so it wasn't quite worth the drive for us. Maybe in the spring we head down there and see what we see, but I don't know. I think there's better options closer to us, but we'll see.
If you're doing that drive, it's going to be Saxon Bog.
Yeah, right. So on the drive back, then you got word that somebody had seen a pintail duck at the old Cedar Bridge, which we've gone to before. I think we've talked about it on the show.
Yeah, it's around the river. It's
Yeah.
good it's where we saw the northern shovelers and
Yep.
coots and things like that. So it's definitely
It's a big wide area of the river. It's marshy. It's
if you have a scope, and you're in Minnesota, you should go there.
and it's this old bridge that they kind of turned into a pedestrian bridge, like a bike walk bridge. So you kind of get right out over top of all the ducks and stuff. It's pretty neat. So we're like, all right, we're gonna be driving right past that on the way home. Let's just stop and maybe we can salvage the trip. So we park. We go out on the bridge. We just see a bunch of mallards, maybe a couple wood ducks. I forget.
I think it was just mallards.
Yeah, we got a good looking egret eating a fish.
Yep.
So that was nice.
Yeah.
No pintail duck, and maybe it was there, but it's just so far away. It's a good place if you got a big scope. Maybe go there with a scope. And
there's a little dock area too, which we'll talk about, and that's a really good spot if you can. It's just they go on the far side of the river. You just can't see them.
So like, all right, there's this nice little boardwalk area that juts kind of out into the river, into this marshy area. You can see some different areas than from the bridge. So we'll go do that quick. We'll see what's out there. Maybe we'll see the duck out there. So we're on our way out, and we hear a marsh wren chirping along in the brush. So we stop and we're listening to that, trying to see it. I think we saw like movement. We didn't really get a good look at it.
I think we heard it make its call as it moved, type of thing. So we knew that was it.
And I think that was the first of the year for both of us for marsh wren. We've both had them in past years.
Yep.
So that kind of salvaged the trip a little bit. And then we were about to move on to go out to the overlook area. And also we heard a Sora calling out.
And we know the Sora sound now.
Yeah, now we're experts on the Sora. So we got all excited. We're sitting there waiting for it for another 10 minutes or so. And it didn't really do any more noise, and we didn't ever see it.
Yeah, Sora's known to be there. I think I've gone there in the past, and you've gone there.
We've gone there several times
for the Sora.
Yeah.
But it's a good habitat for it, which means it's not good for us to see it.
So we gave up on seeing it. We continued out to the lookout. We get out there, just a bunch of mallards, some geese, no pintail duck, but there were about 5 or so greater yellowlegs kind of wading around in the water, which that was first for me for the year.
Most I've seen in one place. I've had a few single ones at the lake near my house, so I was lucky to see them before, but it was good to see a group of them.
Yeah. So yeah, no pintail out there. So we kind of hang our heads and we're walking back, and we're just walking along, and you just happen to look to the side, and what'd you see?
I saw the Sora.
Yeah, it was just sitting there.
I was all scanning without really much hope, because again, it's a lot of weeds and marsh, just there's a little muddy river, sort of muddy stream, and I was looking down and it sort of crossed it. And I think did you see it as it
I saw its butt as it was skittling away into the grass. But you just happened to look in the right spot.
Yeah.
It was...
Because it didn't make a noise, and it's so small. And I felt like they were bigger than that, because when we were staring at the one, we were fully through the binoculars. So I'm just like, this bird's huge. It's a chicken.
They're so tiny. Yeah. But yeah, got lucky that we saw it. So that's second Sora we've seen this year after never seeing them. So.
Yeah. That was one on your sort of big list.
That was kind of on my list of the year. So to see it twice, one in the spring, one in the fall, was pretty nice. But yeah, by the time we got back to the car, we were tired, we were hot. We were planning on recording an episode that day, and it was
going to be a post-spring episode, and then it would have been a post-summer episode.
Yeah.
Instead, you get it all now.
So yeah, we were we're good. We're not going to record today. So sorry about that, the extra month and a half delay, but we had good intentions, just didn't follow through. So that was the big trip we did in the fall. But then
headed out, right?
Yeah, my family had rented a house out in Colorado for a week. I was able to join briefly for the end of the week for about 3 days. I went out there, and so I kind of had a little mental list in my head of what I thought I could see out there, but I didn't have a ton of time to go looking everywhere.
All the western versions of the birds that we have, the eastern ones. Yeah,
so I did about 4 or 5 hikes over the couple of days, which I did see some good birds. It surprised me that there wasn't, the volume of birds wasn't very high, but it was nice that everything I did see was either new for the year or a lifer. So I ended up with getting some pretty good numbers off the trip.
Maybe because it's a bit colder that side.
Yeah,
I
and it
know.
was I don't know if it's with the elevation what their migration patterns look like, because I know in the mountains it tends to be a migrate up the mountain and migrate back down the mountain more so than north and south kind of stuff. So
Yeah, their migration might have happened a little.
yeah,
October
it was
might have been a bit
it was
too
pretty
late
chilly
for them.
when we were there. It was in the mid 50s, so that could have been part of it too. I haven't looked into it a whole bunch. But I was able to check off 4 new birds for the year that I have seen in previous years and previous trips out west.
Nice.
I saw a black-billed magpie,
Okay.
a couple of them. I never got a good look at them. I always kind of saw them in the distance. Tons of ravens. They were the one thing that were out there in volume. Which they were pretty cool. They would be up on these cliff sides and mountaintops, kind of flying around, just calling at each other. And they were just so loud, it was like echoing off the cliffs.
That's pretty.
So half mile away, and you could still hear them. So they were really cool. And then I saw some western bluebirds. A good flock of them, about 6 to 8 of them flew past me, which was pretty cool. And then white-crowned sparrow. There was a couple of them just picking away on the path ahead of us on one of the hikes.
So 2 of the birds that have been on my sort of radar of wanting to see you just saw casually. So
Which ones are those?
the raven and the white-crowned sparrow.
Yeah.
Because I think earlier in a trip this year, I was convinced that I saw white-crowned, but I think it was just a white-throated, and ever since then it's been in my mind. And the raven's ever been in my mind since someone, an eBird, recorded one in this area, and we're convinced it would have been a crow. But because
you would think, but you never know. I mean, it does happen. But
because they said there's a raven, every time I think about ooh.
Yeah. Well,
maybe
now
it's a raven.
I'm the expert on ravens, so I can help us out if.
There we go.
Yeah.
And Merlin did pick up a raven that one time.
That's true.
And it was a mallard.
It was just a mallard that was sick or something.
So
I don't know.
Yeah, this eBird person, I know what happened. You didn't. It was either a crow closer than you thought, or it was a mallard being sick. But anyway.
Yeah. So those were the ones new for the year, not new for lifers. But I'll run through the lifers that I did see here. So it was right at the start of our first hike. The first bird I saw was a Townsend solitaire.
It's an odd name for a bird.
Yeah, I'm sure Townsend was a great guy. I haven't looked into it, but they're not the craziest looking bird. They're maybe slightly bigger than a robin, mostly just light gray, but they're really chatty. I heard them first, and then I saw them. And then throughout all the hikes, then you just hear them constantly. So the novelty wore off pretty quick.
It was like the redpoll, the common redpolls that we saw. Like, oh, sweet, a common redpoll. And then there's a reason it's called common.
But it was cool to see it. It was kind of somewhat of a white whale for me. Over this past winter, springtime, there was a vagrant solitaire that had made its way to Minnesota. And it was at a park, 10, 15 minutes from here. And people kept reporting it over and over for like 2 months straight.
Wow.
And about once a week, I'd go up there and try to find him, and I just could never find him. Every time I went, he wasn't there. Maybe now, knowing what they look like, I would be able to spot it better, but I could never find it. And then he stopped showing up to that park, went back home. So
at least you crossed it off now.
I got to cross it off, yeah. So that one, I kind of got rid of that haunting me. But soon after that, we were hiking along, and we got to this area where it's kind of some pine trees, and
sounds like chickadee territory.
Yeah,
to me.
so I also hear a bunch of chickadees, and I'm like, oh geez, more black-capped chickadees, just what I need. And then one flew up kind of past me and landed in a branch, and I was like, oh, that's something different. It was a mountain chickadee.
Oh, okay.
To my ear, they sounded like the exact same as black-capped chickadee. But their coloration was a bit different, a little more stripy on the eyes. Okay. They kind of alternated black and white a bit more than blackcaps do. So that was really fun to see. They acted the same. It basically was the same bird as a black-capped.
What's like the in the UK, the tits?
Yeah,
they're all kind of same kind of territory, same kind of activity.
Yeah.
I feel like now the boreal is on both our lists, right?
The boreal, that's the one chickadee we gotta check off. Yeah.
That's next year's goal. If I only see one bird, but it's a boreal
chickadee,
I'll call it a win.
So that was a nice little surprise. And then later on in that same hike, we stopped at this really nice overlook. We were taking in the scenery. And then there was this little flock of birds in these kind of short, shrubby pine trees. And I was like, oh, white-breasted nuthatches. And then got a better look at them, and it was actually pygmy nuthatch. A lot smaller, which should have tipped me off, but a lot smaller than the white-breasted. Similar-ish coloration. But it was a really nice surprise because, I had that list in my head of what I might see, and those were definitely not on it. I don't even think I knew they existed. Were a
No,
thing.
I didn't. I saw the pictures you took of the cute little guys.
Yeah, pretty cute. But I did see white-breasted and red-breasted out there, so I saw 3 different nuthatches on the trip. So
Were the pygmies nobly smaller than the red-breasted?
I would say slightly smaller than the red-breasted, notably smaller than the white-breasted.
Okay.
Yeah. But the one on my mental list that I really wanted to see, that I knew there's a good chance of seeing, was a Steller's jay. It's basically the out west version of blue jays.
They're very pretty.
They're very pretty, very striking, dark blue and black. I got a big mohawk on them. Saw one on my first day, kind of in the distance, so I was pretty excited. Got to check it off my list. And then over the next several days, I got really, really good up close looks at them. Especially like on the hiking trails, they're not shy of people.
That was the one, without knowing anything about the birds over there, that was the one I thought you might see that. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I wonder if you'll see a Stellar's.
Yeah, so got a really good look at them. They were just, I don't think maybe people probably feed them on some of these trails.
Unfortunately.
So there was a couple of spots where they were just in the trees right next to people, not really caring at all. But
Or they'll just take the scraps because they'll.
yeah, probably. But got really good looks at them. But one jay that I wasn't expecting to see was a Canada jay. There was at one of the lakes we stopped at. There was 3 of them.
No, they're not in Canada. I suppose the geese don't, do they?
Yeah, they don't see borders.
Yeah.
But I got some good looks at them. They were in the trees right by us. I got some really good pictures of them. Very chatty. That's kind of how I figured out exactly what they were. I had a hunch that they were jays. But pulled out Merlin, and it immediately was like, oh yeah, Canada jay.
They've got a distinct noise different to the blue jays, or typically, or is it similar kind of screeching?
Similar, it's just really loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Merlin had 0 issues picking it up. And then at one point, I don't remember exactly which hike this was on. Up ahead there's this big dead tree, and I saw a decent sized bird land. Got a couple quick pictures, and it flew off pretty much immediately. Didn't get a good look at it, but went back later, and a couple of the pictures, there was just enough showing that it was a Clark's nutcracker.
I've not heard of a Clark's nutcracker.
I hadn't a whole lot, but I happened to see it. I forget if it was on the birdie the one time or something. But it was kind of in the back of my mind as one that would be cool to see.
Does it have a big beak then?
I think so. Yeah, you couldn't in my pictures. You can't even really see the beak. It was the butt that gave it away.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, but so it was nice to check that off the list. Maybe someday I'll get a good look at it. But no complaints. No complaints. And the last of the lifers from the trip was another surprise. I had heard the name before, but if you had asked me what it looked like or what they do or where to find them, I wouldn't be able to tell you. But as we walked around one of the lakes, we went there because there was a moose and a baby moose at this lake. So we went to
Not a bird, though.
Not a bird, but we did go to this lake to see the moose. And so as we're walking back from seeing the moose, there was a couple of these little small kind of sparrow-sized birds, and they were picking through the muddy bank.
Okay. It's not usual.
Yeah,
Sparrow.
and so I didn't recognize them. They seemed pretty nondescript. They were brown, tannish. They had some chest streaking. But they're, taking their time through the mud. So I got some really, really good pictures of them. It was nice and sunny out. Looked through back later and figured out that they're actually American pipits.
Oh, see, I know the name.
Yeah.
And sometimes Merlin will say it heard a pipit, but I kind of rule that out as in fact, I'll talk about it later, but I was at Cedar Bridge at that little dock where it's muddy, and it said pipit, and it's like, I didn't hear it, I didn't see anything, I don't know what, but if you're saying in kind of muddy banks, like, it's possible that it actually was there, but...
I'm not sure what their range is, if they get up this way a lot, or...
I kind of rule it out, but...
Right, could be.
It's a name I've seen, so that's kind of exciting, at least. Now you know, so if we see him...
Yeah, so that about sums it up for the trip. It was short and sweet, but did get some good birds checked off my life list.
Yeah, even if a quieter time, you still you got a good four for the year, and then at least
Another
5 or 6.
It was I think 6 or 7 new lifers then for the I think 6. So not bad. I'll take
Not
it.
at all. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So about you? What have you been up to since the last recording?
Yeah, a bit like you. It's been a bit of a strange birding summer. I think once that migration window ended, which is when we did our big walks,
Yeah.
I admit I'm not inclined to go out. It's hot. It's humid. The likelihood of seeing a new bird
It did rain a lot early summer this year.
Yeah, there was
So,
some mixed weather, and it's like I do like seeing, but even regular birds, I do like that. But when it's hot, it's like I need a bit more motivation. And in my area where I do the little local loops, we had a lot of construction. So the lake that in the start, the summer had yellow legs and all that kind of stuff. Normally in the summer there's still activity, but it was very quiet because all this noise.
Yeah.
The good news is there's now a full there's a path by the
nice.
road, and you being on that road, it's kind of you're kind of on the side of the road hoping a car doesn't hit you.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's nice.
It will make it good for next year, but for 3 months I think it was not worth it. Anyway, but that said, when I did go for a walk, it seemed like I was hitting a lifer or something new. So
Yeah, all summer long, I kept getting texts from you saying what you saw, and I was getting kind of jealous.
my hit rate was incredible. So I figured I'd just talk about it chronologically.
Sure.
We're gonna have to go back a little bit. It's gonna be a bit of a memory lane trip down 2024 summer. But yeah, that was kind of a cost of our long recording too. But anyway, so June, before the construction came in, there's a little swampy area that I like to stand. And I like to stand there for like 10, 15 minutes and just kind of let birds come in and kind of let them forget you're there.
Sure.
Nothing new. It was, red wings, some woodpeckers flew over, nothing special. But I have Merlin playing just in case it catches something. It's how I initially found a swamp sparrow there. It was with that. And as I was about to walk away, it said alder flycatcher.
Oh.
And I'm skeptical because before it said tufted titmouse, like there's no tufted titmouse here. But I thought, you know what? I'll go back because you never know.
Never know.
And I heard it again, and I was looking. I could see the Merlin picking up the hearing the bird, and I could hear it. And I started looking, and I saw this bird at the top of a little branch, and I saw it make the noise. I thought, okay, well, I need to listen to the sound myself. So I listened to the recording and what they sounded like, and yeah, put it all together.
Nice.
Watched it make the call. So that was a lifer, unexpected.
I think that would probably be a lifer for me too.
Yeah, they're very elusive.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was quite far out, and I just could see its mouth moving and making the noise, and I'd made sure to play the.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, so I was, that's where Merlin can help you. It can get you on the right path.
It's a good tool.
Yeah. And then later in June, we went with friends to Chicago. It's a bit like your tripping away. It wasn't going to be a birding trip.
Yeah.
But I brought my binoculars because
might as well,
just in case. Saw chimney swifts.
Nice.
Which it was a lifer for me too, and I had not seen them.
It's kind of funny that we did them separately.
Yeah. Knowing that they're a popular bird, but yeah, it was about the same time you would have seen it if it was
Probably,
June.
Yeah.
And then also saw they have like a lot of like sand duney bank area at this the Montrose Point Bird Sanctuary, which is just off the lake, and saw northern rough-winged swallows, bank swallows, and Caspian terns.
Oh, nice.
There was about a dozen of them just sitting at the edge of the beach. So the terns were lifers. The other ones were just for the year, other than chimney swift. But for a trip that was not intended for that, to see 2 lifers and a couple of year ones, was pleased with that. July was quiet, but did take off indigo bunting for the year. Clear-coloured sparrow, which was the first true sighting I'd had. I think someone else I was walking with recognized the call and said, "Oh, it's a clear-coloured sparrow." I'm like, okay, add it to my list. But this time it was my idea.
Yeah. It's nice to have an official one in your brain. Yeah.
It was funny too because we had lunch beforehand. My wife and I were like, we'll play some calls so we're ready for it. And then we heard it. And it's like we know what that is. And ruby-throated hummingbird. I know you had them at your house, and I was gonna get the point where it's like I'm gonna have to drive to you when it's there just to see.
Well, I had tough luck with them. It showed up to my feeder like once or twice, and then didn't come back. So I don't know if the stuff I put in my feeder wasn't tasting good, or I don't know.
Well, I was within our yard too. It came for zinnias.
Huh.
So
I'll have to plant some of those next year.
And then the clear-coloured sparrow was at Belwyn Trailhead, which keep an eye out because I think that might be a place we should check out next year because it had a lot of had some sort of savanna areas. It also had trees and forests. Had a bit of everything, like a lot of these Minnesota places do.
Put it on our list.
Not a new bird, but saw I think 6 or 7 cedar waxwings flying overhead too,
Oh.
which I rarely ever see them in
those.
flight.
Yeah.
So that was July. But the big thing was August. It was our 10-year anniversary. So the wife and I went for an extended weekend break to Cape Breton in Nova Scotia. So we could take a look at the island there. The main draw for us was puffins.
Yeah.
Have you seen puffins?
No, I haven't.
Well, neither have we. We missed them by a couple of days. We had a boat tour planned, and when we went there, they said the last puffin they saw, this was, I think it was a Monday, and they said the last puffin was Friday. And they were actually doing refunds, like, because people come for the puffins.
Right,
Like, if, you know, we haven't seen them, if you don't want to do it, that's fine. But no, we'll go on anyway.
You never know what you see. Yeah.
And the captain and his son were very good. Like, whenever there was a bird that'd slow the boat up, they did loops around to make sure you'd see it. They had little placards. If you didn't know your birds, they would read them out. And we did have some success. Lifer birds and year birds. On the year list, I added the great black-backed gull. Yeah, that's how to phrase that. Which I've seen at Cape Cod before, so it's nice to know the Cape. The ruddy turnstone and the great cormorant. Both of those I've seen in the UK, so it's nice to see them over here too.
Yeah.
And also the great cormorants, there was dozens of those, but they were with the double-crested cormorant. So it was nice to see a size-by-size comparison, because it's one of those ones where it's like, when you don't know,
right,
it's like, which is it? But when you see them together, it's
kind of like the downy hairy woodpecker.
Exactly,
kind of thing.
yeah. Or raven and crow, probably, if they were hanging out together. But the lifer was the black guillemot.
Oh,
there was a couple of them left. Most of them had moved on with the puffins, but they were just in the water. So the captain slowed up, so got to see them well enough. But that was just the beginning, really. Over the next few days, because we drove around and we'd stop at all the little nature areas because there's plenty of them. So in terms of sort of new birds for the year, American redstart, which I don't know if I saw last year. I think I might have skipped it. I see
them most years, but I don't think I saw one this year. It's kind of a surprise.
It was a female yelling at a male, so they made a lot of noise. We got that. Semi-palmated plover.
Okay.
Northern gannet, another one I've seen in the UK, but not here. We watched that fly for about 5 minutes because it was just following the shoreline.
Oh, nice.
Common eider, which seen in Cape Cod.
Yeah.
And the magnolia warbler. But the life list got American black ducks.
Nice.
That was a funny one. We were just driving on a sort of a weird road. It was not even part of the trail, and there was these ducks under a little bridge, and we pulled over and were like staring at them. They weren't moving, and we saw the brown because they're very hard. Like you would think mallards, but we were confirmed on that. Golden crown kinglets, which I hadn't actually seen officially. And the really rare sighting was a red-throated loon. It was just in this harbour by itself. Felt like it shouldn't be there. But the behaviours were there. There's a lot of like lifts its head up and tilts around, because we're thinking, what could it be if it's not a red-throated? And like, we knew it wasn't a juvenile, our common loon.
Right.
We knew it wasn't a merganser, so it was like, it's the only thing it could be. So that was a real kind of 1 in a million almost feel for that one. But it wasn't the highlight. As I mentioned before, ever since someone mentioned seeing a raven, the raven's in my mind. I look at every crow twice. I think there's been times where I've said, is that, and I get excited when there's a crow.
Yeah, it's like, no, just a crow.
It's just a crow. I haven't forgotten. Well, again, driving down a random stretch of road, we passed an abandoned house. Had some black shapes on the roof.
Oh.
Now, we were driving a big truck, and it was a narrow road, but I did a U-E. I pulled around and came back, and they were big. And it was common ravens.
Nice.
Saw them, heard them. Yeah, they're big. There's no mistake when you say there's no mistake.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was my 200th bird on eBird.
Nice.
A bit of a spoiler for later, but that it feels special that it was meant to be my anniversary bird. And then to finish off August, we went to Pine Point Regional Park, another one we could probably check out. There's a lot of warbler sightings there.
Okay, that could be a good spring one then.
Yeah, we went off. It wasn't the main trail. It was one of the ski trail. The ski trails where it's just mud basically when it's not winter. We saw an ovenbird, and also a lifer, which was the chestnut-sided warbler.
Nice. I've seen the chestnut-sided warbler, but ovenbird, that's another one of my white whales.
Okay,
I know they're around, and I haven't seen one.
We might have to go there. It was so the path kind of went sloped downwards, and there was just a bit of a gap in the forest, and they were all just on this sort of dead tree. So
Okay. Yeah, we could do that in the spring. Hopefully, get some good warblers. And
optimistic, yeah. So that was August. So
Okay.
I thought the end. Now it's September. You know, the weather's cooler.
Yeah.
We mainly just did some walks for the sake of walking, just get a stretch of legs. We went to the Vadnais Lake chain, the Sucker Lake, which we've done plenty of times. Earlier in the year, that's where I saw my grey-crested flycatcher and an eastern wood pewee. And there's quite a lot of, because it's between the lakes, you tend to get a lot of birds that'll cross over.
Kind of funnels them.
Yeah. But added another 2 lifers there. The Nashville warbler,
Nice.
which is very cute, small, just
They
kind
are
of
cute.
landing on these little straw fronds, and it would just bounce them all the way to the ground and fling back up. And a Franklin's gull, which unexpected. I thought gulls, the chance of seeing, you just assume it's a herring or a ring-billed, but it had the size and the
I
black.
feel like that should be one of our goals next year, is to really hone in on some gulls and try to see a bunch of different ones and figure out what the differences are. And
I think the frustrating thing about the gull, I agree, the frustrating about the gulls, unless it's the black-backed,
yeah,
or like a little the Bonaparte gull, or there's another one where it's quite small and distinct. I think it's a little, might be just little.
I think
gull.
it is just little gull. Yeah.
The rest, and even Merlin doesn't even bother with that. It doesn't even.
Yeah.
It says hearing bird, and then it just leaves it blank.
That's a part of my birding knowledge that's pretty lacking. So I think we should kind of like how this year our goal is to hone in on warblers and birds of prey.
Yeah, and sparrows, and I think we did better at those. Yeah,
so
it's
something to keep in mind.
It's hard, and no one really gets excited about gulls, so
Right.
it makes it harder. But anyway, thought that was the end. You know, this is the end, truly. No. October, you know, normally Minnesota shifts into winter.
Yeah.
And it gets cold, the trees go, and everything dips out. But it was still mild, so we took a trip to Tamarack Nature Center. And I had one goal in mind, which was the white-crowned sparrow, as I alluded to. We've seen a lot of white-throated sparrows. We saw juncos there. We saw woodpeckers, warblers. But I wanted to see a white-throated, because I swear I've seen one earlier this year, and I was 90% sure, and then, because I didn't know about the white crown, and I got confused between the two. Anyway, the sparrow that had eluded me, it was there. I just turned back. It was a dead tree. We'd already walked past it. I turned around and I thought, that's just another white throat. I thought, wait a minute, it's bigger. And it does have quite a crown to it. It is quite notable. Like, it would land and it would kind of like flit up almost. Only one of them.
That's all.
That's all it takes. So that was it. Nope. Just kidding again. A week later, we went to Old Cedar Avenue Bridge, as we discussed. Figured maybe there'll be a few late movers. Again, the pintail was referenced still, but no. We saw hundreds, maybe probably 1,000 American coots.
Oh yeah, it's a good spot to see coots if you want to see coots.
I think you gave up counting when we saw them.
Yeah, it's not even worth it. And they're constantly moving, so it's just a bunch of black dots shifting around. It's impossible to count them.
There was a couple of killdeer.
Okay.
Probably the most great blue herons and egrets I've seen in one place, because they're all fishing. Cormorants, as you'd expect. Yeah. And there were a few northern shovelers, so I guess if you hadn't seen them, there was still a chance. But there was another guy who had his binoculars, and he thought we were looking at it was a shorebird, and we knew it wasn't yellowlegs. And he thought it would look like it was a plover, and he thought it was an American golden plover. So we were looking at it, we were looking at our phones for pictures and that kind of stuff, and it's like, we're pretty certain it is, but it was just out of our range. And it was like when we went down to the border where it was so sunny, it was almost washed out. But a juvenile bald eagle kind of went across the sky and riled it up, so we heard it make its call.
Nice.
So that was one last lifer. No, it wasn't. We crossed the bridge that you talked about there. Where it's a bit more foresty and tree-like. Mm-hmm. And we saw at the top of a tree, there was about 6 dark birds. And it's like, these aren't grackles. And they weren't redwings. They weren't making those noises. And they weren't crows. So we kept looking at them and we realized that the females had... the females had a brownish shades compared to the males. Like, they weren't all more distinct. They were distinct. and my wife had been thinking about them before, so it was in her head. It was rusty blackbirds.
Nice. That's
So
another one of my white whales.
completely unexpected.
Yeah.
It was mainly just the the white-throated sparrows were there, that kind of thing. A few cardinals.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like they're around. They're not super duper common, but like enough. But you don't see them until you see them.
Yeah, and it's just this. It was just like they look like red wings, but I'm not seeing the red. They're not. How loud they are too. It was like something wasn't right. So yeah, that was completely unexpected. But yeah, another lifer.
Nice.
So yeah, now I'm done. I thought we could add another one today, but
no,
the savannah was not there.
It was not there. Well, thanks for going over that, Alex.
Yeah, it was a busy time. Again, that was. I think I described 7 walks across the months every time.
Quite a few lifers throughout those. So you did good. So let's go through our goal progress for 2024, and then I figured next episode we'll record on either end of the year or beginning of next year, and we can go over then 2025 goals and then go over the final
recap. There's still time in the season.
There's still time. So let's go through our progress for this year's goals. So my goal was to match/exceed last year's number, which was 127. And up until the Colorado trip, I felt like I was progressing pretty okay. We got quite a few in the spring, so that pumped up my numbers pretty good.
Yeah.
Our outing that we did in September, that put me up to 116.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, all right.
Despite it not being super.
Yeah. So I was like, if I can just get 12 more in Colorado, that'll put me at 128. That'll put me one over. And I saw 11. I saw 11 new things on the trip. So right now I sit at the exact same numbers last year, 127.
Oh man!
Which was part of why I was, so excited that we saw that Savannah sparrow today.
Yeah, I was
would have put me over.
You would have to change your outro a little bit.
Yeah, but no, I kept the show notes the same because it was a song sparrow. So I'm sitting at 127. So I have 2 months. I need to see one more thing. I need to go through eBird and just see what is common this time of year in Minnesota and just pick the most common one that I haven't seen yet. Make a point of going and finding it.
We're hoping there's an owl. There is
an
owl. We're hoping for the great.
Well, I don't think I've even seen a barred owl this year, which that might be the easiest one.
I've heard them a few times. So yeah. Owl maybe.
So I need to make a point here this next couple months to just go look at something, just figure out what it is that's the most common and just do it.
Savannah sparrows were seen today.
Yeah, so maybe I look up where they actually are and go find them. But so if I end up only matching last year's number, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it'll just be tough to be so close.
You're gonna do it. It's gonna be a real random bird. That'll do it. I reckon.
Yeah, probably.
Could be the woodcock, whatever
Could
it was
be
that
the woodcock. Yeah,
the guy talked about. Yeah.
But my secondary goal was to get 215 lifers. And things have gone pretty good. I reached 210 back in May. That was the Chimney Swift, put me at 210. And then I locked in 7 more out in Colorado, so that put me at 216. Or did I do that math wrong? I must have been at 209 for the Chimney Swift. And 7 more in Colorado would put me at 216.
You're 100% 216.
I'm 100% that I know it's 216.
And you're only in Colorado for a few days, so it really shows what just a little trip can do.
Just going out of your local area can really pump up the numbers.
Across the mountains.
Yeah, so that's I hit my goal. That's over 215. So I'm going to have to figure out next year, kind of look ahead to see what trips I could be doing, because it's, the longer you go staying in your area, the harder it gets to add more lifers. I feel like we're slowly ticking away the ones in Minnesota that are easier to see. I think we might be going down to Florida in February for a long weekend, so that might be my chance to check some things off.
You want to go to Cape Breton, see you puffing?
Yeah, maybe.
You can meet the same captain that I met, and he can show you all the stuff there.
But besides the Florida trip, there's nothing on the docket, so unless something else comes up later in the year, it might be tough to really add extra numbers. So maybe I'll be conservative and just say like 220 or 225, but we'll see. I'll think about it. What about you? How's your goal for the year going?
Yeah, well, my initial goal was to hit 100 birds for the year and 200 lifers. But But last year's numbers was 132. But I didn't think I'd beat that because how am I going to compensate for, I think, 64, 65 UK birds or so? You
Yeah.
could go to the UK, that would do you.
Yeah, that would do it.
But because we had such a prolific spring,
Yeah.
where we made trips to places and we really went out there, I was able to reach 100 easily enough. I know last podcast I still was kind of cautious of surpassing last year's total, though I did think I would hit 200.
Yeah.
And well, as I hinted when I discussed the common raven, I did meet 200 by end of August as a 205. And then, like I said, despite only going for a few walks in September and October, in just our local region, the same parks we always do, I'm now at 210 lifers.
Nice.
Again, just every walk was adding one. And then for the I think I'll struggle now. I think a bit like you, I'm gonna have to hit somewhere new. I think I'm exhausting it, or
maybe next year we drive over to like South Dakota or something.
Yeah.
Or stay one night or something like that.
Well, Saxon Bog, boreal chickadee.
Boreal chickadee.
And then for the year list, I didn't just match last year's 132. I crushed it. I'm at 150.
Nice.
Which I'm really pleased about that.
You crushed me.
Yeah, Cape Breton was a big success. I went there and got 13 yearbirds and 5 lifers, and that was out of season really.
Yeah.
But I think it's all just proof of how a little perseverance and dedication can go a long way.
Yeah, you can't see the new birds if you don't go out.
Exactly. A lot of credit to my wife because she would be looking at places online and saying, let's go for a drive here, even though I didn't want to. And of course to my good friend Aaron and you and your camera.
Yeah, the camera helps sometimes.
Without you with me, I don't think there's no way I would have done so well. But I think it's credit to both of us for how great we did this spring,
Yeah, doing all those really high yield trips in the spring.
Like William O'Brien was over 30, I think, or was it might be closer to 50, I think, one of the trips.
Like 50, yeah. But
Lake Elmo.
And doing the Saxon Bog back in February.
When it was freezing.
But that pumped up our lifer numbers and year numbers really early and just got us going.
Yeah, it made us some good memories too, because the Sora was excellent. That was a highlight. The Meadowlark.
Ooh, yeah, the Eastern Meadowlark. That was a fun one.
The owls up at Saxon Bog.
Yeah.
That we saw by the roadside.
We need to do another, even if it's cold. We need to go back up there this winter.
We'll just wear warmer clothing.
Yeah.
We
bring some hand warmers or something. Really plan ahead.
Yeah, that was something. But no, I think we both did great, and hopefully there's a final surprise before.
Yeah, we'll plan on either recording in December or maybe we'll wait till like January, February, and
with one lifer, we hope.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think that'll do it for us today. Longer episode, I think, than normal, but we had a lot to go over. It's been a while. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Alex, for joining me. Thanks for
my pleasure.
Putting together your part of the show.
Of course.
But yeah, have a good one, everybody. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.